if the Chiefs had played a better game and still lost, I don't think anybody would be surprised. But I will call it shocking, and not shocking that they lost, shocking that the Kansas City Chiefs, who we talked about it in our preview episode, they are the kings of the high leverage moment. They are the kings of delivering in the clutch. They failed all of those tests, all of the marks of a team that delivers in high pressure situations. They were just gone. I mean, talk about a hell of a time to play your absolute worst game in quite some time.
Yeah, maybe it should have been a harbinger when I was speaking to a Chiefs coach during media week, and he was saying that he'd been asked the question multiple times, does it ever get old? And he said that it does. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. It kind of seemed like, this Chiefs team was maybe not complacent, but not as motivated as they should have been. They got into a 10-0 hole, which is kind of ho-hum for Patrick Mahomes. But the Chiefs know that it's ho-hum. The Eagles know that it's ho-hum for Patrick Mahomes to come back from a 10-0 deficit in the Super Bowl. It's happened every time he's in the Super Bowl. And so the Eagles were built to control the lead. They're built to make sure Mahomes can't get back into the game, or any other great quarterback that they faced this season, including, with context now, makes Jaden Daniels, his season even more impressive, his postseason more impressive, even with the loss to the Eagles. So given how the Eagles were built, a complacent, or at the very least patient Chiefs team was not going to win this football game. And it takes hindsight to say that, but now we know, right? And maybe Patrick Mahomes sensed that as we kind of wound down the second quarter, which was when he got itchy. And he talked a little bit about that post game. He was talking about how, he takes the blame for those situations, that he's looking to try and bring a spark to the offense, but sometimes, that results in the type of plays that actually hurt the team. And so he said, that those two interceptions that he had were the reason why he feels like he's going to blame himself more than really any loss he's had in his entire career. So maybe one of the most immature games from Patrick Mahomes that I've ever seen, in terms of impatience, in terms of turnovers, in terms of forcing the football. So like you said, the guy that we think of as, and who I've touted, all season long as like the money player on money downs, the money player in the fourth quarter, the best situational football on the planet. He looked like a rookie in the most crucial moments of this game. And ultimately, it was a team effort. Anytime the score is this lopsided, it's obviously going to be a great number of factors. But like when the Chiefs looked to Patrick Mahomes to be the guy that would lift them, he did the opposite. He sunk them.
I love it when you can read my mind, because right here on my rundown, the first sound we want to throw to, and you outlined it perfectly, but let's go ahead and hear from Patrick Mahomes, who talked about how his decision-making put the Chiefs in a situation they could not recover from.
We didn't start how we wanted to. Obviously, the turnovers hurt. And, I take all the blame for that. Just those early turnovers swing the momentum of the game, and then they capitalized on them, and they scored. They scored on the one, and then they got a touchdown immediately after. So that's 14 points that I kind of gave them, and it's hard to come back from that in the Super Bowl. And so just didn't play to my standard, and I have to be better next time.
I love the word you used, man, itchy, because it's perfect, because that's exactly how Patrick Mahomes looked. And I'm curious for your perspective. First play of this game, Greg Allman mentioned it. It looked like classic Chiefs, and it was honestly an incredible play where Mahomes' whole body language goes to the swing pass in the flat, and he fires a no-look laser for a first down. And it was the last easy thing that happened for the Chiefs in the entire first half of that game. And I wonder, there were so many tight windows. There was so much pressure in his face. I wonder if Patrick Mahomes realized in the early going of this game that it wasn't going to happen without him doing something superhuman. And in trying to do something superhuman, he makes two costly mistakes that are the biggest reason why the Chiefs lose this game.
No, you're 100% right. That's the way I saw it as well. a rare moment where we can just completely agree, Dave.
It took all year, but we got here.
Yeah, right. Finally on the same page. No, but you're right. Like I was talking about, if the Eagles' plan, is to build a lead and protect it with Saquon Barkley, then the Chiefs' plan has to be to keep the Eagles from getting that lead, which they are so good at protecting. Like, it's obvious football, get the lead, but it's not so obvious in that, like, the Eagles are actually built to just like protect it better than anyone. Saquon's going to run for 5 yards a carry somehow, and that's going to chew clock. And then all of a sudden, you're going to realize you don't ever have enough possessions to come back into the game. That's exactly what happened. And Mahomes could feel, I'm guessing he could feel that momentum shifting away from him. He saw, that 10-0 lead or that the Eagles got. That was when things started to catapult. Mahomes must have said to himself, hey, this is my moment. I'm going to take over this football game. And like we said, he ended up sinking them. And then it happened again, the next drive, like the next interception. So Mahomes could sense the game slipping. He knew that what they could not let happen was happening. So he pushed the intensity. He pushed the risk management. He made decisions that were probably not advisable, but he wanted to take an extra risk because he knew that even if he like punted in that case, right? Even if it had been a punt instead of an interception, that the Eagles were starting to run away with this one. And ultimately, like, the turnovers or the touchdowns had to start happening. Sort of like when guys throw on fourth down or late in the game on third down, they arm punt it, right? Like, there's that situation where it looks like a really dumb interception, but when in reality, the game is so far out of hand, you need an explosive play to flip the feeling, flip the momentum. Then you're kind of like, oh, okay, maybe that interception wasn't quite so bad as I thought situationally, right? I think that what Mahomes saw was situationally, the moment called for a big play. It called for a touchdown drive. And so he couldn't walk off the field, whether it was with a punt or an interception. Ultimately, that actually was what forced the interception.
It's crazy that the Chiefs got to this game considering a lot of things. I mean, it's a testament to how good they are that they got to this game. But against this team, they finally looked like a group that had next to no juice on offense. I mean, Xavier Worthy had a nice rookie season. He did some very impressive stat padding in the second half of this game. 8 for 157 and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, a lot of that happening after it was decided. I know Rashee Rice, you presume he comes back from injury next year. You can look forward to things like that, but this looked like a team that needed more juice at running back, at receiver. Travis Kelce did not speak about his future after this game, but even if he doesn't retire, you'd probably like to get younger at tight end. It's remarkable that it took them until the Super Bowl to get to that point, but plenty for Kansas City to want to work on in the offseason, and that's without even mentioning their offensive line as well.
Right. Definitely going to head into a rebuild, I think, for the Chiefs. Not like a tear down, but maybe a retooling. And like you said, I think what we've seen over the last year from Travis Kelce is just like that he's not a tight end one right now and probably not ever again. I was talking to Dave Tobe, the assistant head coach, and he made this indication. He said, I believe, like, when you've always been the guy, sometimes it's hard when you're not the guy anymore. That's paraphrasing, but he was talking about Travis Kelce. He was talking about how Kelce's evolved in terms of leadership throughout the year, really coaching his teammates, some receivers, some tight ends, teaching them how to run routes in the way that Pat Mahomes really likes. But in talking about it and complimenting Kelce, he sort of also delivered the backhanded compliment, which is that Kelce isn't the guy anymore in this offense, that they've got to spread the ball out. So I think the question is, do you want the guy to be Rashee Rice? And I think he probably can be that guy so long as he's healthy. And given the scale and scope of his knee injury, it's possible that will take some time. He won't, if he's playing in week one, he's probably not going to be at his best in week one. Xavier Worthy, we saw him play great. Is that enough? A developing Xavier Worthy and a getting healthy Rashee Rice, and then a fading Travis Kelce. Is that enough for this offense? I wouldn't be surprised if, like you're saying, Brett Veach says no, and we need to think about specifically the tight end position and the future there, but also maybe thinking about other options at the receiver position. And then, like, the offensive line was the biggest problem tonight, in my opinion. The left tackle position has been a turnstile. You know, with every single player they've used there, they drafted a guy in the second round this year. It didn't work out. They brought in Wanye Morris. It didn't work out. They brought in DJ Humphries. It didn't work out. So they moved their left guard, Joe Tooney, out to the tackle spot. Sometimes that's a brilliant move because it galvanizes the line. Sometimes it's the opposite because it weakens the left guard spot where Tooney is a Pro Bowler. And then it also weakens the left tackle spot where Tooney is not a Pro Bowler. So by moving your Pro Bowler away from the spot where you know you can really solidify left guard, you actually weaken two positions rather than having the left tackle be the only weak position. We saw a little bit of that tonight. I think Tooney actually, you know, it isn't to say that the Tooney experiment was a disaster, right? It did work in previous weeks and it helped their offensive line. But this was the game where it didn't, where that game plan didn't work out as well as they would have liked. And they can't do that next year. They need a real left tackle. That is, maybe aside from quarterback, probably the hardest position to fill among any. So whether they think that they're going to go after another one in the draft and sort of call last year's tackle Kingsley Suamataia bust, I would be surprised. But they do need to bring in someone and someone very legitimate in order to, I mean, after watching this, right? Like, you think about the Tampa Super Bowl and what they had to do to fix the position. I think they might have to get as aggressive.
It's surreal to be in a spot where we are contemplating all these moves the Chiefs have to make instead of just, hey, roll the ball back out. You're the Kansas City Chiefs. You'll be back on the mountaintop. And I'm with you. I'm very, very confident the Chiefs will be right back in the mix with the contenders next year, but there is work to do here in a variety of places, as evidenced by what we saw in this game. And on top of that, this is what I want to get to next. This has been an exhausting run for Kansas City. You talk about playing multiple playoff games, going on a deep run into the Super Bowl in 3 straight years. And on top of that, you don't win this one. It is exhausting. It is deflating. And I wanted to hit on Andy Reid mentioning all of the extra football that the Chiefs have played to get to this point before they start trying to reclimb the mountaintop next year.
To our fans and all the support that they've given us, today was a rough day. We didn't really play well in any of the phases. Didn't coach good enough. They did a nice job. I'm proud of our guys, though, for the battle, the fight that they put in throughout the year and all the games that they've played here over the last few years. So my hat goes off to the guys for that. And we'll learn from this. Like most games here, when you don't do very well, you learn from it as a coach, you learn from it as a player, and you move on.
I don't think anybody's shedding a lot of tears for the Chiefs having to play 12 or 13 extra games over the course of the last 3 years. But like I said, it's physically and mentally draining. You saw the pain that Chris Jones was dealing with in this game. You saw a lot of very depressing shots of the Kansas City sideline. So that on top of needing to retool a few things, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, I'm curious to see where they go from here. It'll be an interesting offseason.